everyone. I hope you're having an amazing day. Welcome to another episode of Platform App Builder Certification Series. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the manual sharing, and then we're going to talk about identities like two-factor, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on kind of stuff, right? Just a brief introduction to it today. Okay, so first thing first, please log into a developer org. If you are trying this for the first time, please do not use customer sandbox. Simple, right? Okay, so now what happens is that, we talked about sharing settings, right? Where we decided that, okay, if you are a developer belonging to a certain profile, and if you create a record, usually if you go where org-wide default settings, right? Where if you grant access by hierarchy, so your boss will have access to the record created by you, right? Because based on the role structure. Now, that being said, if you wanted to give access to, say, sales department, then you need to probably enable the sharing options, right? And we create a sharing rule, which is fantastic. Now, there's another thing called manual sharing, where if you wanted to assign a specific record to a certain user, you can do that using manual sharing. Very simple option. It's like, let me give you an example about an opportunity. You're working in a sales team, right? So you have an opportunity in place. And then you wanted to share that record with another person, let's say someone from a finance team. So you can pretty much do that using manual sharing. So the way it works is pretty easy. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to Classic, because unfortunately sharing is not option. You can't use it using Lightning. So go to an account. Very simple options sharing. Go to account here. So choose an account. Please don't worry about the account name. So I have a lot of bad data, if I would say in that way, because when I was creating a certification series from Platform Developer 1, I've mucked up a lot of data using triggers and other kind of stuff, right? If you remember. Okay, so please, my apologies if you find the naming convention kind of sucky, but that's okay for now, because that's not what we are here today. So let's go to sharing here, right? And you remember this add option here, so you can go add, and then you can add the user, and you can add the user here, so that you can add manually, right? So that's pretty much you can do. So you see, I've added a user test here, right? And then I have done this using manual sharing. So now the user test will have access to this record, right? So that's but only the read-only access in this case. So yeah, that's one of the very easiest option. At times, you don't have to create a sharing rules. If you want to share one record with someone else, you can do that using manual sharing. Very nice and easy. But unfortunately, you have to do that in Classic. I mean, I do not like Classic interface. No offense to people who are using Classic, because I've trained on Lightning, and I find Lightning more is mobile friendly and all kind of stuff, right? If you've been a Salesforce developer or Salesforce consultant for years, you might be quite comfortable with Classic experience, right? And I'm more comfortable with Lightning experience. So cool. Okay, so this is how you can do manual sharing, right? So that's finish our security part of stuff, right? The major part, we talked about object security, we talked about field level security, we talked about record level security, right? That's the 4 types. We talked about org-wide defaults, then we talked about roles, then we talked about sharing setting, now we talked about manual sharing, right? Cool. Now, the important topic I want to talk about today is about Salesforce Identity. So what is identity all about? Identity is something, right? It's like you are who you are, right? Let's say I am XYZ person, so that defines your identity, right? But how will the Salesforce know, right? Say, or another scenario, right? You might have seen different application, like you can log in Salesforce using LinkedIn at times, right? So, because this, that means you log into LinkedIn, and Salesforce trusts that that's authentication coming from LinkedIn is correct and let you in, right? So that's a kind of a social sign-on, like you log in using Facebook or Twitter, you can log into your Salesforce. So it's like you are who you are proclaiming to be. That's so. And one of the advantages that, imagine you have a lot of passwords to remember. It's kind of a nightmare, right? Say most of the times what happens is that in your org, especially in your company, even if you're not a Salesforce user, for a second, forget about a Salesforce for a second, right? Think about your company infrastructure, company network, right? You log into your computer, right? Your workstation. You can access your email, right? And then you have a third-party integration, let's say Workday for maybe for a timesheet. And then you have a Kanban board, right? For your maybe for whatever, that's for looking at your tickets, right? And then you have say a Jira platform for something else. Let's say if you can log in using your just company credentials to Jira, to your let's say Workday, to different platforms, right? So what does that mean? That means single sign-on. Means one time you log in and it trusts that whatever your authentication is trusted by your organization. So in that case, what happens is that LinkedIn don't have to worry about it because they trust, because the authentication coming from your organization. The work, they don't have to worry about it because they trust that the information sent from the token that they receive from your org is a valid one, right? So that's how the single sign-on. Single sign-on is very handy because otherwise, imagine you have to write down 50 passwords, right? Different for. So one time you log in, it logs you at different places. So that's the concept of single sign-on. And then connected apps is there. Connected apps in Salesforce plays an important role if you wanted to, so that's, you can see that authorized resource that you sign in to user have access to, right? Their connected apps bring Salesforce or third-party app service together, right? So if you have done auth integration, right? If you've done integration with a third party, you know what connected apps is all about, how to do a managed, so you can actually enable auth authentication, right? And social sign-on is pretty straightforward. The name itself suggests, right? What is social sign-on, right? You're logging into your Salesforce using Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, right? That's what I mentioned. Two-factor authentication, right? It's very handy, right? It means that you're logging in using different means, right? Say, very common example. In your company, right? Forget about Salesforce for a second, right? In your company, you log into your account, right? You logged into your machine, logged into your network. Now, when you try to access, let's say Outlook, you get a message. Please enter a verification code, right? So the verification code that's often sent to your phone or to your email. So that's how the two-factor authentication works. Google, for instance, right? Google Gmail account, right? It says, do you want to link your phone? So what happens is that when Google detects that there is some kind of strange activity, it will ask you to enter the code, verification code, and that verification code is often sent to your phone or to your to your email or whatever means you selected, right? So you need to enable the two-factor authentication, right? In Salesforce, user have to provide a second proof of identity, right? In addition to the username and password. So it means to say that you log into your org using username and password. That's just not good enough. You need to have another way to verify that you are who you are, right? So like I said, the authentication app or Salesforce Authenticator in case of Salesforce, right? So we're going to talk about the My Domain. So you can actually customize your domain, right? And then we have Identity Connect and App Launcher. So I will talk about detail in next lecture. So Identity Connect is like when you wanted to synchronize your Active Directory to your Salesforce. So Active Directory to your Salesforce, what I meant by that, you have your own credentials, right? When you log into your, xyz@company.com. Let's say that's your email address. Now, you don't want to create another Salesforce login, right? So you wanted to synchronize your AD with the Salesforce. So you can do using Identity Connect. So that's what it said. When a user is connected in ID, the same user account can be created automatically in Salesforce, right? So you don't have to go and manually do something, right? So that's why Identity Connect is very handy, because think about it, right? Why would you want to do, same thing twice, different places, right? Right. So App Launcher this is very easy option, right? So now let me go to Salesforce Lightning, right? So the App Launcher, okay? So these are the App Launcher here, right? So you type, these are the apps. So how does your App Launcher knows, right? That you are who you are, right? I mean, how do the App Launcher knows that when you wanted to go to account, let's say I wanted to go to GB account, how does the App Launcher knows that you are the right person who should be having access to the account in the first place? That is using a Salesforce identity again, right? It plays an important role, as you said, in the Lightning experience. So this is a very, very basic stuff, but it's very important, right? Security is very important in Salesforce, right? So like you say that you have App Launcher. So this is a fully integrated solution, right? So you have Active Directory integration, then you Salesforce, single sign-on, you log in once, then you can access to all of this, right? So that's what I gave you an example, right? Workday, you can have Concur or whatever, right? So you connect here, and this is the connected apps, and you can access to third parties. So I mean, you create you go to, let me show you one thing. Just a second. Let's go to App Manager. Right, you go to App Manager here, right? And let's say I wanted to give access to a third-party provider information about APIs, right? Because Salesforce have account APIs, they have different APIs, right? Like contact APIs or custom object APIs, whatever you build. Now, how will a third-party provider will have access to this data or handshake their credential with your credentials, right? So that's why you create a new connected app. So when you create a new connected app, right? So what you're going to normally do is that you actually expose and OAuth settings. We have a client secret key and ID, so that you share with the third party, and they will use in their API calls to pass the credential so that it get authenticated, right? You can have basic credentials, you can have you can have OAuth credentials, right? So yeah, that's how the connected apps comes in the picture. So if someone says, look, I want you to give me access to your API, so you need to go and create a new connected app. So just give an example. Let me demonstrate one very quick. So you can have, so you put the connected API name, email, whatever you wanted to put, right? And then you have OAuth settings. So if you enable this one, right, then you have then you can give access to your data or based on this. And then once you click on save, it will create a secret key and ID or token. So that you need to provide to a third party, right? So that's how you integrate with a third party solution. If someone wants to push the data, pull the data from your org, right? In the same way, if you are calling their API, then you need to know their credentials, right? So that's how it works. So that's one of the things you need to know. That's how the connected apps you can see. So we are integrating with a Concur. So if Concur wants to pull the data from Salesforce, they need to know the token, right? So how to provide a token. So you need to using connected apps. Very simple concept. It's nothing fancy about it. So I hope it's not overwhelming. So this is very, very simple, right? Single sign-on, right? If you know the concept of SAML, then you know the concept of single sign-on. So connected apps, as I mentioned, what importance of significance of connection, connected apps, then social sign-on, then domain, you see, and then you can customize a domain, right? And then different stuff, Identity Connect. So I would encourage you to go and read it. So it's the same place where I'm teaching the platform app builder. So get to know your security identity. I would highly encourage you to go and read it, please. It's important. You need to understand, right? I try to cover the basic stuff. Then we're gonna look at a few more stuff in the next coming episode about this one. and then yeah, learn the language of identity. So we're gonna look at some protocols, right? Like I talked about samples. So I don't want to talk about today, so we will talk about the next lecture, right? So that's all I wanted to talk about today, guys. Greetings and adios from New Zealand. Take care. Bye bye.